basically using standard DNS for your DNS SD lookups as opposed to multicast DNS. And we already support that with the MDNS responder portion of the code, but Avahi requires special handling to query domains other than .local. So that code still needs to be done. And then we've got some new stuff for configuration profiles, and that we're working on the libcups 3 repository as well. So I think we're going to end up with something fairly flexible. So however you want to find your printers, you'll be able to do it, and both at home and in the enterprise, and should solve a lot of problems that historically we've had. Like, why can't I put more than one server name in client.conf and things like that. Localization, PPD files have supported multiple languages. IPP supports multiple languages, but CUPS is stuck to one language, whatever the current language is on the system, and that is limiting in certain environments. You get a lot more multilingual workplaces and schools, obviously, and so forth. So it's important for us to be able to support multiple languages when the printer supports that, certainly. And then the localization that we've had in CUPS has been kind of a hodgepodge. Distributions will provide their own message catalogs sometimes, and other times they'll use what comes with CUPS. And so we're in the process of getting set up so that we have the automated translation through, I want to say it's WebLate, but I'm probably remembering this wrong. But so that's kind of what we're trying to get set up so that everybody can use the same message catalogs on any distribution, and we'll have better coverage and better updates, because historically some localizations have lagged behind others. So on the OAuth front, we are really trying to get OAuth as a replacement to Kerberos, and this is another area that could really use for contributions, students, professionals, whatever. And a lot of this will happen at the desktop level, because OAuth requires you to have a web view in order to do the auth workflow that the provider has. And so we've got the infrastructure in place for that, and now with the backporting of APIs, we'll have all of the APIs that are necessary to implement OAuth and OpenID end to end. And so I'm hoping we'll have fairly soon things integrated on the Linux desktop, at least, what's needed for OAuth. And I know Google has also been very interested in doing this on Chrome OS. So hopefully we'll get that in place. I'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slides. And the last thing on the features here was job sheets call support. This has been asked for many years. Long time ago, you used to do a custom PostScript file to print your banner page on a particular paper tray, a particular type of media, and you would make things appropriately, do what you wanted it to do. And over the years, since we moved to the PDF workflow and added that banner file format to generate the banner sheets in different formats, there was no way for you to say, I want to print the banner page on blue paper. And but IPP has had this ability for a long time. We just haven't made it available through CUPS. So that's what that job sheets call is. It's the regular thing you'd use to specify a banner page is job sheet, and you'd specify a name. And job sheets call, you specify the name of the banner page, as well as the media for the banner page. And it makes it very straightforward to support. We just need to add that in to cups, and that's still pending. But that will solve a particular problem that we have in the enterprise in particular. So getting back to the backporting I've been doing, there's a new set of APIs to better support media call, which is the size, margin, source, type, color, a few other attributes there. And the old APIs that we added in cups 2 1.5, I think, were just the size and the margins, and we didn't really think about, oh, well, maybe we should have a way to specify the source and everything. So there's a new structure that you specify for the media, and it's the same thing you'd use in the cups 3 APIs. And I just bump the regular functions that we were using in cups 2.x. So there's a cups add media options 2 that takes this new cups media type structure, and you can specify all the media that you want, and you get the right options to go into the print request. The form APIs are just what you would expect if you're dealing with HTML form data. This is used for a lot of OAuth flows, but also REST APIs and so forth. So we'll have that built into cups. And the IPP file APIs are the things we use for IPP tool, IPP EVE printer, and on the PWD side, the IPP server file format. So basically the configuration files that you'd use to set up attributes and values and whatnot. So those are actually available as regular APIs now. They were private in cups 2.4, but we've got it settled out, so they're available for general use. JSON and JWT APIs, and again, this is needed for OAuth, but it also happens to give us some support for REST APIs and so forth, because I suspect that down the road we're going to be doing a bit of that for cups 3 anyway. And then the last thing here, the X509 certificate management improvements, and this is a new set of APIs, allows you to create certificate requests, sign requests, do all the stuff that you would expect to do, and it's all supported for OpenSSL and GNU TLS. And obviously we need this for when we're doing cupsd for sharing, but also for saying, is this a certificate I can trust to use for printing? If I'm a client and I'm sending a print job, and we've had previous APIs, they're actually a lot more functional and a lot more capable. All right, so our wide area bonjour is what Apple calls it. It's DNS SD over regular DNS. There's a issue here tracking it. The MDNS responder code already supports it, like I said earlier, but for Avahi, we need to actually list all of the domains that we're part of, and then create browsers for each domain that we care about. And it's not difficult, it's just tedious. So for the profile support, we have an issue sitting in the libcups repository, and this will get backported. But essentially, the idea is you have a directory where you'll find these plain text files that list servers and printers that you would like to see. And so it's set up so you can do it system-wide and standard locations, or per user. And yeah, you see it right here. We're gonna add support for the .config directory in your home directory, as well as the historical .cups. So any of these things, when you list the available printers on the system, it will go out and it will query these things. And I'm sure we're going to have to do some optimization here, but you know, it's pretty straightforward. You have an IPP system service. So you just say server and you give it its URL. If you have a cup server, you just tell it server name, and just like you would in the client.conf file and older versions of cups. And then this printer thing just points directly at a printer that can be talked to. So um, this is going to be going in fairly soon, and then that'll give us some time to optimize it and get some feedback. And along with those profiles, it was proposed here, hey, I want to be able to filter out stuff that I don't care about. So you might have a central server, but you might only care about printers that are in your area. And so, um, the Cups has long had this ability to do this filtering, but we've never really turned it on because it's, you know, some users of Cups didn't want it, and some um, didn't care. But essentially, you'd have, like, if you wanted to only show printers that are within a certain distance to you, and you could specify that, and if their location is configured, then you can say, oh, we're this far away, and so no, we don't want to see that. Um, and similarly, the text based location information. So you're in room 3, building 4. You know, you have, if you're in an enterprise, you probably have some standard format for this thing, and then you can filter it, either listing out specific strings or regular expression, um, and we'll make that fairly straightforward. So these would, if they're in the profile file, these would apply just to that profile. If they're in the client.conf file, they apply to everything. All right, yeah. So here's the weblate um, uh, URL for the thing, and I haven't gotten the response back yet from the project whether or not they'll cover us. I'm sure they will. They did for Papel anyway. Um, and once we get that in place, we have a few other uh, issues that we're tracking. There's a pull request actually here for one of the things, um, and uh, the challenge we have here is, as soon as we start supporting multiple languages, one of the optimizations that we have in Cupsty right now is when you uh, open up a PPD file for a printer, we only read the strings for the current language. And when we were reading every string before, it was a major uh, drain on the system resources, because some PPD files contain hundreds of thousands or millions of strings, um, which boggles your mind. But it's basically, we have to come up with a way to limit this. So if you're in an organization that doesn't need this stuff, then we should be able to have the same uh, experiences before, where it starts up quickly, and it's not taking a lot of time to generate these strings files. Um, but yeah, well, we could use some help here. All right, so OAuth. Oh, guess it likes the arrow keys too. So the goal here is to have a replacement for Kerberos. Kerberos, um, hasn't kept up with modern security and um, yeah, even things like Active Directory in the Microsoft world is moving away from Kerberos and toward OAuth. Um, so uh, one of the things, one of the advantages of OAuth is that it doesn't require root access or us to change users and everything in order to support the printing that we need to, and and you have at a protocol level you have more control over how long a particular uh, authorization token is valid for, whereas in the Kerberos world, it's a one-time use token, and for your ticket, and every time you want to reissue it, well, either you have to be a ticket, you have to get a special ticket granting ticket, which we tried, and that didn't work in a lot of environments, or you have to run as a user where you can get a ticket for printing from your login ticket. Um, so um, the goal here is to support OAuth in CUPS 2.5, and then CUPS 3 will drop Kerberos support. And so we'll at least have a nice transition period for people that need to run 2.5 and people that can run 3.0. On the OAuth front, there's a lot of open source solutions that are available. I've got one there that's suitable for testing purposes anyway, and I'm hoping to get it fully updated so it's OpenID implementation as well as a generic OAuth implementation. It's based on libcups, which is another reason why we have all the JSON and JWT stuff in there, because it's required to implement OpenID. SAML and WebAuthn backends are also available. And those typically will provide more integration with the enterprise solutions for this stuff. But the goal here is we support anything that's OpenID or RFC 8414, which is the IETF equivalent sort of OpenID, so that you're able to actually get metadata from the server that explains what it can do and what it expects. There's a standard going through the process in the printer working group called the IPP OAuth extensions 1.0. I'm actually the author of it, and essentially it's defining the expectations for using OAuth with IPP, and getting everything lined up so that we know we can be interoperable with any OpenID or OAuth server, as long as it supports the basics that we need for IPP. So once we get this code in place, we'll be able to cache the bearer and the refresh tokens that you get when you authorize through OpenID or OAuth, and we can cache those uh, for each user account and for each server that's being used. And so when you go to print and it needs to authenticate, it'll pop up a little embedded web view and allow you to log in to GitHub or Google or whomever you're using for your OAuth provider. And we still have some implementation questions about this, how we're going to do this. Is it going to be a separate dbus service, or are we just going to put this with a common print dialog? And obviously, we also need a command line tool for providing the bearer token at the command line, because I don't think we're going to be able to pop up links or some other text-based browser to do an authorization flow for OAuth. Okay, so that's CUPS 2.5. That's end of the year, beginning of next year, getting everything lined up and doing a last feature release for CUPS 2.x. So CUPS 3 is the next generation architecture, and I'll be the release manager for CUPS 3.0. Um, and we've got a beta of the libcups out already. We're going to have a second beta later this year, and then a release candidate for the library and the first bits of the local commands uh, and print server um, in the spring. So about the time that we're putting out our first stable release of Cups 2.5, we'll have our first beta of the local bits, at least for Cups 3. And then the sharing server, and we'll hear more about this, will be a year from now. So the all the developments being done in separate repositories, libcups, cups local, and cups sharing. And there, you may, if you've been out there, you also noticed the cups commands repository, but that's getting merged into cups local and cups sharing, because we don't really need to have a separate repository for print commands. All right, so any of you have seen any of my prior presentations on this? It's basically, we've got a new modular architecture. We got um, the common library for everything and the tools that we need going into libcups. And then there's a local printing part and a shared printing part. And the focus of this is to separate responsibility for things. On the client side, when you're doing printing, you're collecting print files and you're converting them as needed for the printer, and then you're sending it to the printer. And if there's anything like paper out or low ink or any of those sorts of errors that come up, you can interact with the user and show that to them. And similarly, if you need authentication, if the printer says, "Hey, I want to know the name of your firstborn," um, that you're able to either approve or deny those sorts of things, and interact at the user level. So there's that side of it. It's all client facing. It's the basic spool, despool, you know, transform as needed into a format that can be printed and so forth. Um, and all of these things are going to be operating exclusively, with IPP attributes and values and concepts. So, if you have something that is not an IPP printer, then you need to use something like a printer application to support it. That's one of the reasons we've been working so hard over the last 5 or 6 years, is to get things in place so that when we make this change, it's not going to be such a big change. We'll be able to move everything over, and for the most part, people are just not going to notice anything. If anything, they're just going to notice that things work a lot more quickly, a less um, lot less issues with, like, some options work one way in one printer and a different way in another printer, and once everything is going through IPP, everything uses the same options and the same values, for a given feature. So that's one of the things that we're really wanting to get to, because it it makes for a much better user experience, but also more reliable printing experience. Um, because we're doing a major release, we can get rid of anything old that we don't want to keep bringing across. So that means getting rid of any of the APIs that have been deprecated, any of the features that were deprecated. Things like Kerberos will be gone. Printer drivers and TPD files will be gone from cups, but going back to the printer application, um, there is a printer application for those drivers already, and it's being used. And along with that, doing some general cleanup, and you see a little bit of this with the backporting that I've been doing in the Cups 2.5 repository for the APIs. But what this uh, boils down to is just making sure that the name of things and the way things work in the API is consistent throughout, because over 24 years of cups, there's been a lot of organic development of the APIs, and over time we've had different thoughts on what makes a good API, um, uh, how things are going to be used, and so forth. Things have changed over the years, and so now we're going to catch up to that, and we'll be able to start fresh and have a much easier to understand set of APIs than we've had previously. So go with the big picture here. So we have things that run at the user level and things that run at the system level. And you'll see there the printer applications and the sharing server and some of the cups tools tend to run more on the system level. Printer applications in particular, they need access to USB devices and things of that nature. So they have to be able to access things at the system level. Um, but then we have things that run in at the user level in the login session, and so you have your applications, cups commands like LP, LPR, that sort of thing, um, and the local server. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's basically when you print something in the old cups 2.x architecture. Let's see. There's my transition slide. Oh, it's way back there. Never mind. In the old architecture, we had cupsd, and it ran at the system level, but it provided printing to regular users, and so everybody saw everybody else's jobs, and all sorts of wonderful mischief could happen. And so we're trying to isolate things and not just between users, but functionally, so that it's you have a clear demarcation between responsibilities and security. And as you can see on the architecture here, the cups library kind of is underneath all of this. They're all using this in order to do anything related to printing. So libcups, that project is cups tools and cups library. And so there's the repository for it in under our Open Printing Organization. The commands that will be in there, we've got the IPP, EVE, PCL, and PS. Those are more developer tools than things that we would expect people to deploy, but historically they've been available through CUP. So we're providing them here along with IPP EVE printer. And this was the start of the whole idea of a printer application. And what I found since then is this program here, the IPP EVE printer, gets used a lot in testing, and also for specific tools when you want to be able to have a virtual printer and accept PDF files or something like that. So it's useful to have there, even if we're not using it as a first order solution for printing to a non-IPP printer. IPP Find is a developer tool, administrator tool for finding printers on the network. IPP tool actually interacts with IPP requests. And then IPP transform is something we've had in the IPP sample project that's going to move over here. And it basically handles converting from text, image, PDF to whatever format that the printer needs. And so that's kind of a generic tool that will get used by the other components to handle any conversions that are necessary. So in the library itself, we have new APIs, and I note here they're also provided in CUPS 2.5, but you have the IPP test file APIs that allow you to have parse IPP attributes as well as other information from a file. A simple API for decoding and encoding HTML forms, and then there's JSON support, JWT support, and X509 APIs that I've mentioned before. So all these things are new, and yeah, ordinarily I would want to look for these things in, uh, aside from the IPP stuff, in other libraries, but they just really don't exist in any form that's usable, or that it's, you know, available everywhere. So this way, all of the cryptographic stuff um, is available to a CUPS um, API user, developer, um, whether it's coming from OpenSSL or GNU-TLS or LibreSSL, which uses the same API as OpenSSL. It's all transparent to you so that you can just say, "Hey, I want to sign this JWT with this particular algorithm, and here's the keys, and it all just works." So um, the goal here is so that we can better support OAuth, but also any other web-based APIs that we're going to consume or serve up. All of the deprecated APIs in CUPS 2.x are gone, and the names and calling conventions and return types and so forth are all normalized now. And there's a document called migrating.md in the repository. This is also okay. This is also in the generated documentation, but it just gives you, if it was called this before, it's called this now, and um, anything that gets a value has a get in the name. Anything that sets a value has a set in the name. If you're making a copy of something, it has copy in the name, and so forth. If it's a Boolean value, instead of passing an int, you're passing a bool, and similarly on the return side. Um, so a lot of kind of shuffling and renaming happening there for certain functions that you might use, and as a result, this new library isn't binary compatible with any of the previous releases of CUPS. So we use a new major version on the library, and and we won't expect that anybody will have um, like if you're linked against libcups2, you can still run because it's a separate library. And if you're linked against libcups3, then you'll look for that library. So hopefully that will make that part of the transition easier as well, because I know there's some drivers that are tied to a specific version of cups and will crash if we make any kind of incompatible change, even in private APIs that they weren't supposed to be using. So status on this is we're basically feature complete. The only thing that's missing right now is the profile support and the transform program. And once those are in there, I'll be doing the second beta release, and then with luck we will get to release candidate and general release early next year. All right. So the next part, the next project is Cups Local, and that provides all the user level stuff. So that would be Cups commands and Cups Local server. There's the repository there, then on called Cups Local. It has the regular printing command, so that's cancel, LP, LPQ, LPR, LPstat. And then there's this local server, which right now I'm calling Cups Local D. Maybe we'll come up with a more appropriate name, but basically it's going to handle all the local print requests. You get temporary IPP everywhere print queues. If you're using profiles, it kind of sort of makes them permanent, but it's basically just whatever that you're going to print to, it keeps track of, and once it's done printing, then it goes away. So it's running as a user, and then we have this domain socket like we do right now in cups 2.x, and or a dbus API that you can talk to, and or on Mac OS if we get to this XPC, which is what Apple would prefer to use. The status here is it's barely started. The repository is there, and I started putting bits and pieces in there, but a lot more has to happen. That's why you won't really see any kind of activity until later this year. So here's a block diagram of it, and you have um, the IPP system service instance running in there, and basically keeps track of all the printers and jobs. You have interactions with whatever user interface services. So this would be responsible for popping up uh, dialogues, alerts, and that sort of thing. Um, Underneath that will be the library and the tools uh, for cups, and then below that, obviously, we have dbus for talking for dbus and DNSSD for discovery. And the goal here is to have uh, something that will provide at the user level all of the sorts of services and functionality that you're used to without all of the cruft of doing printer sharing and web interface and accounting and all that sort of stuff. So its sole goal is to be able to let you bring up the print dialog, choose a printer, choose options, hit print, and do any interaction that you need to access the printer or to provide information. And um, otherwise, it's as soon as it's done doing any work, it goes away and not using system resources and just generally being a good citizen. The last part of this is the cup sharing server, and it's its own little thing there. And it's repository sitting out there under open printing as well. It gets some of these other commands that are administrative in nature, and the sharing server itself, which has permanent print queues. It does sharing. It can do accounting, access control lists, pre-processing, OAuth and PAM based, for HTTP basic authentication, and support for shared infrastructure extensions. So if you have a printer that wants to do release printing, for example, and so you have a single print queue that the users send to, and then they go to a printer and they swipe their badge, and out comes the print job that they have for them. That's where this server comes in. This is intended to provide that level of functionality where it can be your central print server or one of them. If you have multiples, we'll be able to set up load balancing, all those sorts of things that traditionally we've done with cups. But this time, because we're not dealing with printer drivers and user access and all that stuff, um, we can design it to actually support sharing and accounting and so forth all the way, not just kind of half-assed. So that too has been barely started, and I probably will not get to doing a whole lot with this until mid next year. So another great place for people to start looking at, and particular, how do we integrate with things like um, the various print accounting solutions, Printer On and forget the others. But anyway, um, we need to come up with APIs and interfaces for them to plug in here so that we can provide that functionality, because I don't think we want to try to be every possible way of doing accounting. We just want to be able to have the ability to do accounting built in so that um, we can get some really interesting add-ons developed for it. All right, here's the block diagram. You notice it's very similar to um, the uh, the local server, only here all we have is network sockets coming in for communications. Also have a web interface for managing it on a web interface. There's support for authentication and accounting, so those are other modules in here, but otherwise we have system service, with printers and jobs, and they're layered on the same libraries, tools, and so forth. All right, so we're getting near the end here. So the challenges here, and I've mentioned these before, but I'll kind of uh, clean this up a little bit. So because we're trying to better integrate with the desktop and with the user, particularly for the cups local project, um, it's much broader scope. We need people with different skill sets who are able to do the user interface stuff and be able to provide this um, uh, in a form that the desktops will be able to use. Um, and on the desktop, and I know this is already happening for Cups 2.x, which is great, to be able to get them to use a common print dialog and print API through DBoss so that they can do their printing, their authorization, and consent, which is an important aspect of the print accounting solutions. Um, that's something we haven't really tackled as much, and we're just getting into. Um, Obviously, I can't do this all on my own. I'm going to need people to work on different aspects of the local and the sharing servers and do the desktop UI and those services. I'm hoping that some of the PAPL code can be adapted, you know, and repurposed for the local and the sharing server. Um, the print dialog work that's already been done can be expanded on, and I'm hoping that we have existing notification and authorization user interface that we can use and just put it in the right places. The last thing here, and this continues to be an issue, though I've had some some preliminary interest from Google and making this better. We don't have anything for really rendering PDF content um, that doesn't have a problematic license or some other limitation. Um, and when I say problematic license, I mean uh, as much as I love GhostScript, their choice of uh, AGPL or GPL3 puts restrictions on what can be done um, as we used to do just by running it as a separate process. Um, and you know, running an external program every time we want to do conversions is um, has some of its own issues, but I have a feeling we're going to be stuck with that model for a while, just between licensing and making sure that we can isolate uh, print processing from the actual server, because the number of exploits against rendering libraries is still rather high. So we have to identify a library that would be ideal for rendering, so that we can really optimize that path. And then in the future, if we find other libraries or other technologies that become available, we can do that. But right now, Google has something called PDFEM, um, for rendering PDF to raster. But the build system is tied to Chrome, and so that makes it difficult to build and package in general. And Google has said that they will work on making sure that it can be built standalone. Um, but that's an area, if you look it up, if you can work with them on making it something can be built standalone, that will greatly advance the open printing cause, because it has a suitable license, and and it seems to be really really good software as far as what it can do and the security and so forth. Because Google's done a good job on Chrome to make sure that set of code has few, if any, issues. And that's all I have. So I guess if you have questions, I don't know if they could be put in the private chat, then I can answer them audibly.
I think people could put comments or questions in the comments as well.
I'm not hearing you, Ira. You're real quiet.
Okay. Can you hear me now? My mic is turned all the way up.
I can just hear you.
Never mind. If I put my mic by my mouth, it works much better. Sorry. I have been on conferences for 12 hours already today, so I'm not awake.
Are you hearing me?
Yes.
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 So my mic is in on is okay. So anyone has questions?
Till there's quite a lot of ring in the room on your mic.
Yeah.
Anyone wants to ask Mike anything? Nobody? I can come with the mic.
Yeah, so hello, Mike. Okay. Yeah, so hello, Mike. So when can we expect our street to be launched?
So if I go back, I do have a slide there that has the rough idea here. Here it is. So as far as when the first non-beta release of like Cups Local and stuff like that, I'm gonna guess about a year from now, we will start seeing some of the Cups 3 stuff coming out of beta and becoming available generally. But as you can see, like Cup sharing is just going to be going into beta next fall. So, you know, let's be conservative. I hate to put out deadlines or anything like that, but somewhere in the next couple years, we will get there, and it'll just depend a lot on how many people we have working on this and what issues we run into, because I'm sure as we implement things in Cups 2.5, for example, for OAuth, we're going to run into some issues, and we'll need to address those before we can go on to Cups 3 and make that happen. So my goal is not to rush Cups 3, but rather to make sure that Cups 2.5 has everything that's needed in order to make that transition. Because if we don't have a good transition, then it's going to be hard on a lot of people. Because I mean, historically, you have enterprise Linux distribution shipping 10 or 12-year-old versions of Cups sometimes, and we have to make sure that release process and our support for those older releases can continue, and we have a good answer for people that says, hey, why doesn't this work? And oh, well, you just have to use this particular feature to do that transition so you can support your old clients and your new ones.
Thanks.
So I also want to say for the Ubuntu users, the CAPS 3.x, when we are coming out with the beta of the last piece, which is the CAPS sharing server, in September, October 2024, then we can perhaps get a final release in the beginning of 2025. So we can have it at the earliest in 25.04 of Ubuntu. Most probably in 25.10 as a rehearsal for the LTS 26.04, which for sure will come with CAPS 3.x. And another thing, we have here from the, who's on there? What?
Also,
Let me see. Yes, we have here online also Zdeniek Dornal and Ira McDonald, also both from the Open Printing team. Zdeniek Dornal, he is at Red Hat, responsible for the printing stack in Red Hat and Fedora Linux. And Zdeniek is he does a lot for open printing, trialing bugs, release manager, CAPS 2.4.x, and fixing bugs and so on. And Ira McDonald, he is our connection between open printing and the printer working group. So that we know what the printer working group is doing and what we have to do to fulfill the standards, and we are prepared for new standards coming out, development of IPP especially. We meet him once a month via video call, and also we meet him on the annual Open Printing Summits, which are together with PWG. Do you want to ask one of these persons something? No one?
I wanted to ask, what is your work in open printing? Just wanted to know about that. What do you actually do in open printing?
Zdeniek?
Okay, so probably this is the question for me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So usually I help with CAPS 2.4. Usually I'm trying to fix some bugs and answers to people who writes issues there. So I could ease up the things for Till and for Mike. And right now, since I'm release manager of that release, I'm trying to coordinate security fixes.
And Ira, do you want to tell Ira?
Yes. Sorry, trying to get the mute. I wanted to mention for people who have questions about the underlying standards, I am the co-chair of the Printer Working Group's IPP working group, who write the IPP standards and manage the standards, and also MIBs and everything related actually in interfaces. And Mike has for many years also been the secretary of the IPP work group. So one or the other of us, you can send email can probably point you at any existing IPP standard for a topic you're interested in, such as the shared printer extensions and the system service and so on. And we meet bi-weekly, and anyone can attend the IPP work group, and anyone can join the mailing list. And I do encourage people to do so if they're interested in the underlying standards, the wire protocol IPP that makes available all these nice features that continue to grow as feature set even this year. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Any other thing, Mike, Ira, or Zbigniew, what you want to tell to our audience?
Just thank you for coming from my side.
That's what I was just thinking. Thank you for coming. Thank you to those of you who have participated in Google Summer of Code or other open printing activities over the years. It's very much appreciated. The community working together can achieve things that a few of us can't achieve alone. As Mike alluded to, CUPS 3 is a big task, and a big evolution that Till has been doing parallel work in CUPS filters to move to the new printing architecture and printing applications and so on as well, which I think Till is going to talk about a little bit later here.
Yes. And now I think we have still 20 minutes. I will talk a little bit about desktop integration. And perhaps you all stay online so that we can, in the end, also answer questions.
Till, I have a business conference at the hour in 25 minutes.
But Zbigniew and Mike, perhaps.
Yeah, unfortunately I need to go. I had a hard stop about 5 minutes ago, so I'll excuse myself. But if I can, I'll pop back in later.
Yes. It's only 20. It's only 20 minutes which are missing. So, Zbigniew, if you stay in, perhaps you would say anything about desktop. And is Mohit here?
Yes.
Yes. Or should we demonstrate what we have done for the desktop? No. So that what you have to do, we have to. Yes, you have to connect to this. Yes. You have to connect to the system, like remote speaker. Yes, and one thing is we need the link. I think he has to give you the link, so you have to go with your laptop to him.
I made a screenshot. Can we show that or should I do it?
Yes.
That would be easy, right? Because then I have to connect again and do
Ah,
all.
yes, the screen card you have, the screen cast you have as video file.
Yeah. Let me see.
So that you give it on a memory stick to him.
Yeah.
Can someone come here and upload? Also, you're transparent.
Just a minute.
Oh, sorry, I'm wrong.
One moment, please. We will load the demo.
Stream यार से भेजो
Perhaps you log into StreamYard because this laptop has problems. So
Okay. इसे भेजो WhatsApp जीमेल पे भेज दे B20215
B0215
हाँ भेज
yes
B20215
now you share. You don't need to put his
Yes,
NT
yeah.
base in to put it out. Take out this.
Is it visible on screen?
No, now you have done a screen share. Yes, now yes, put it.
So like we can see like all the printer applications are there.
You must use a microphone
Yeah,
when
so-
you.
Yeah, so hello everybody. So this is the new GCC that we are working on, right? As you can see now, there are entries for all the printer applications as well in the main panel of the printers panel, as well as you can access the web interface for all the printer application by just clicking on this gears button next to the printer entry. And when you click on this, you'll get the option to access the web interface. And as soon as you click on it, you will see the okay. So like this pop-up was stopped. Just a moment. Uh, So you can see that this is open up. So now the user can access the web interface with the help of just a click. Not only that, all the devices which are being set up with the printer application will now become visible in a sorted fashion under the listings of all the printer applications, right? So as you can see, like I didn't have much devices set up. So like if a device is set up in button print printer application, it will be listed below it, right? And it will be in a sorted fashion so that the users can easily see them. As well as we have some work on the printer part, add printer part. Just a moment. So now, even in the add printer part, we are able to discover devices using the CUPS get devices call, as well as using PAPL and the IPP services, also like discovering the printer application and then listing all the devices which can be set up with them. So now, if I click on a device, right? So you can see a new printer dialog. So this is again an experimental setup. Now, whenever a user clicks on an entry through here, he can search for which printer application suits their devices the best. And whenever the user clicks on the search button, a query will run onto the open printing web server and the recommended printer will become visible, just like you can see on the screen, right? So again, we are working on like this part, and we are hoping that we can soon find out a stable UI for this, and then shift it to the GNOME Control Center. I'm also working with Marek Isik at the GNOME, and he's helping me out in developing helping out me with the desktop integration of our new CUPS architecture. So yeah, like, we are working on this. You want to say something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are there any questions about this?
Any questions? Any question? Anybody? Yeah. I think they're a bit.
Yes. Someone else has something to say about it?
Yeah, Ira, Stanek, like, do you guys want to ask something? Any questions? No? Okay.
So, thank you very much for your demo.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks a lot. Yeah, huge round of applause for Till and Ira for joining with us.
Yes, I also want to say something. One thing which is a very important task which we have to do currently is the desktop integration. You have seen already his work on the GNOME Control Center on the printers part. And in the printers part, it's important that we count with an all IPP CUPS with CUPS 3.x, that we list IPP services and not CUPS queues. Because the print destinations are IPP services. In CUPS 3.x, in the local server, one does not create CUPS queues anymore. It auto discovers the IPP services and offers users to print on the IPP services. So the printer setup tool is showing all available IPP services. And one must also know a modern USB printer is also an IPP service, as we have IPP over USB, meaning that we have a daemon on a Linux machine, which discovers these IPP connected printers and shows them as network printers on local hosts. And then the print dialogues of the different applications, they need to be switched to common print dialog backends as the common print dialog backends. We have developed so much further that they support the new architecture of printing, print destinations being IPP services, and the whole printing is all IPP without PPT files and classic drivers. And so we need, but this is all in the works, and we need further work to have all the applications dialogues. The GTK dialog is ready. That we need to finish the Qt dialog. Bora Buleria is working on that, and on the applications dialogs, Chromium, Firefox, Thunderbird, and LibreOffice. Kushagra Sharma is working. Are you both here? Well?
No, they're not here.
Ah, yes. And what is very important, if we do all this, we are very nice with the original Ubuntu, which uses GNOME and the Ubuntu Barnet, which is an alt-net. But we have many other distros which use KDE and which use a lot of other desktop environments. And so they do not use the current GNOME Control Center printer as printer setup tool, but old GNOME Control Center system config printer or the KDE settings tool. And there we also need work to get all these printer, either these printer setup tools also converted for the new architecture, or we need additional printer setup tools, perhaps even revive the system config printer development to switch it over. Zdeněk, could you do that? Revive system config printer development?
We will see, but it would be great if we have some contributor for this.
Yes, it would be. Yeah, and the other possibility to get a new printer setup tool for distributions which need a new one, because because of the new architectures. Another idea that we take the GNOME Control Center, we build it with we remove all the modules from it and leave only the printers module in. And this way we get a printer setup tool. This would be an alternative. Only we must take care that now GNOME is switching the GNOME Control Center to libadwaita. And for such an independent printer setup tool, we should have to take care that we do not use libadwaita, because in non-GNOME desktops, libadwaita-based apps do not display correctly. So we have two possibilities for a new printer setup tool to go all over the distributions which are not GNOME. So either system config printer or something derived from GNOME Control Center. And independent of this, the KDE settings need to be updated. And if we have all this, only then we can switch Ubuntu Classic, the Classic installation, not Ubuntu Core Desktop, to the new architecture, PUBS 3.x. Because if we would switch over, we have tried it too early and we do not cover all these desktops, then we break all the Ubuntu flavors, and this we cannot do. And therefore, we really need people to complete this desktop integration, meaning we need a KDE printer setup tool, we need some desktop independent printer setup tool, either system config printer or something derived from GNOME Control Center, and we need all the printer dialogues support common print dialog backends. Perhaps someone who is helping Kushagra on the missing ones. The Chromium ones, Kushagra has nearly finished, and the other ones are Thunderbird, Firefox, this is Mozilla, and LibreOffice. These really need to be done. It's difficult. One has to convince upstreams. One has to get a collaboration with upstreams, where we have still difficulties with. And in addition, for the desktop integration, it's not required for the switch over into the new architecture in PUBS 3.x, is that we have to make the user interface of the Qt print dialog really cute. It's a 20-year-old, rather bad UI. And Borov's work is only to get CPDD in, common print dialog backends in, and not changing the user interface. So a lot to do. We will try to get as much as possible done in the next Google Summer of Code in 2024. So it would be great if you apply, if you contact Avi and me for if you want to participate, and then we will give you some exercises to get onboarded, to learn building PUBs and to learn fixing bugs. And when you do well on that, you get one of our Google Summer of Code projects. And if Google gives us enough slots, then you are in the Google Summer of Code. And if you cannot participate in the Google Summer of Code, either that you are if you are for some reason not eligible as a Google Summer of Code contributor, or if you do not find the time to do a full Google Summer of Code project, there's even the alternative of a half project. It's also possible. You can mentor. You can be a mentor. and mentor other contributors. You can also independently make contributions, fix bugs, quiet bugs, contribute documentation or web design. These areas are not eligible for the Google Summer of Code because it's not coding. For the documentation, I've even found one volunteer already, and I want to try to grow a documentation squad for open printing, because there we are also a little bit behind. We have worked a lot on the new libcubs filters and on the new libpubl retrofit and libcddb, and all these libraries, they are missing the important developer documentation still. And also we need any other general documentation. As user and administrator documentation, who is not programming, he's probably more comfortable with user or administrator documentation. Are there any questions? No one? It's all a lot of nice stuff which you can do. So, Zdeněk, Ira, do you want to tell anything about possibilities to get involved in open printing?
Yeah, basically we are looking for help or various fields. So as Stila mentioned, as Stila mentioned, we and Mike as well. We will be really grateful if someone has a time to. Hi, Ira. Thank you. And we will be grateful for any contribution or any code review and new documentation. And I would say it is a great time with all the guys from Open Printing to work with them. So collective is good, and we are welcoming for everyone.
Thanks. And one thing is also important. We see that cuts development is also a lot of work, and we should perhaps even try to see whether we can help Mike in coding, whether we can look whether Mike should not code everything alone, because the cuts 3.x was originally planned for right now, for this year, and not only for next year. And and for example, in the 2.4.x series, we have an interruption of 1 year of new releases. And so it seems that Mike is also a little bit struggling with getting forward. And I think we should somehow perhaps even coordinate that we get more people into coding cuts. So, what do you think? Yes, I think we are now at the end. Thank you very much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this session. I hope, sorry for the technical problems, because all of this room here, but somehow I hope we got at least some things done, and you have seen the open printing team, you have seen Michael's explaining for cups. If this is the most important driver for open printing, Michael Sweet is designing and developing cups and with this making the base. And I am then doing the integration and coordinating the integration. And I need all of you to be able to do so. So thank you very much for coming through here.
Just I would like to yes, thank you too.
Thank you very much.
Just I would like to add that really you can work on some features. I will not pass some boring bugs to you, so it will stay with me, and some cool features are waiting for you. And thank you everyone for coming.
So, anything else? If not, then we have a great first day and hope we get the AV part better tomorrow. So, you can, I think we end the streaming now. Thank you very much, Zdeněk, for coming and for participating.
Thank you very much, Till, for organizing it, and thank you all for coming again. See you someday somewhere, maybe in GitHub.
Great.